Hello and welcome to marketing91.com. Let's start with introduction to public expenditure. Public expenditure refers to expenses incurred by public authorities such as central, state and local governments for their own maintenance and for discharging their duties towards the economy and society as a whole. It also includes financial aid provided by the government to help other countries. Classification of public expenditure. Functional classification, departmental classification, transfer and non-transfer expenditure, grants and purchase prices, capital and revenue expenditures, classifications according to benefits, productive and unproductive expenditure, Dalton's classification, and Hick's classification. Classification of public expenditure is functional classification. It is based on various functions actually performed by public authorities, such as defense, agriculture, industries, social services, etc. It is further divided into subsidiary function. Departmental classification. It is based on expenses incurred by the government's administrative departments. For instance, defense expenditures may be shown separately for Army, Navy, Air Force, etc. Transfer and non-transfer expenditures. Transfer expenditure implies redistribution of money into the community, that is, transfer of income or output from one person to another. It does not involve creation of goods and services, for example, interest, pension, etc. Non-transfer expenditure implies purchase of goods and services. It creates output and income, for example, defense, education, health, etc. Thus, non-transfer expenditures use productive resources and generate income and employment directly. In contrast, transfer expenditures do not generate income and employment directly. Grants and purchase prices. Grants are expenses made by a public authority for which it may not receive anything in return. Example, old age pension, subsidies, social insurance, etc. Grants are transfer expenditures. Purchase prices are expenses for which the government receives goods, land or services in return. Example, payment to employees in the form of factor payments. They are real expenditures. Capital and revenue expenditures. Capital expenditures are expenses in the form of investments that improve the economy's productive capacity. They result in creation of capital or assets that leads to income generation over time. It includes the government's expenses on irrigation projects, sectoral developments, power projects, water supply, road construction, railways, airports, plant and machinery, and loans and advances sanctioned. Revenue expenditures are a form of consumption incurred for current flow of goods and services and to maintain capital stock, that is, for normal functioning of government departments. It includes the government's administrative expenditures such as salaries, interest payments, subsidies, and defense. Classifications according to benefits. Public expenditure can be classified based on the benefits afforded to people by the government, such as expenditures that afford common benefits to all people include education, transport, health, defense, and general administration. Expenditures that afford special benefits include justice, social security benefits, and child welfare. Expenditures that afford direct special benefits to certain people and add to general welfare include old age pension and unemployment benefits. Productive and unproductive expenditure. Productive expenditures includes expenditures on infrastructure development, public enterprises, agriculture development, etc. that increase the economy's productive capacity and earn income for the government. Unproductive expenditures includes consumption expenditures such as defense, interest payments, and law and order that do not create an asset that can earn incomes or returns for the government. Dalton's classification of public expenditure. Expenditures on political executives, maintenance of ceremonial head of state. Administrative expenditure. It includes maintenance of general administration of economy. Security expenditure. It involves maintaining armed forces and providing internal security. Administration of justice, expenditures on courts, judges, public prosecutors, etc. Social expenditure, expenses on education, health services, social security, etc. Developmental expenditure ensures overall economic progress. And public debt charges includes interest payments and repayment of principal amount. Lastly, Hick's classification. Hick's classification is based on the government's important duties. Defense expenditure for equipment and wages of armed forces personnel. Civil expenditure to maintain law and order and administration of justice. Developmental expenditure for economic development. Sectoral development and provision of services to the private sector, such as tax incentives, subsidies, and other concessions. Expenditure on education, health, social insurance, etc. Now let's look at the important causes of growth in public expenditure. Expansion of traditional functions. The government's traditional functions are protection, general administration, maintenance of law and order, etc. Welfare state. The government undertakes various welfare activities like public health, social insurance, education, and upliftment of weaker sections to achieve economic and social well-being. Rise in national income. Rise in public expenditure is directly related to rise in national income and per capita income. Population growth. Population growth is a major factor causing increase in public expenditure because demand for various public services increases. Servicing public debt. Interest payments and repayment of loans increases size of public expenditure. Planning. Planning is important for achieving economic growth and development. Democracy. A democratic political system tends to increase government expenditure. Urbanization. Public service expenditures increase with the size of the urban population. Inflation. The government has to spend more to maintain the supply of goods and services in an inflationary environment. And lastly, specialization. Providing public services is more expensive when employing experts and qualified personnel. Thank you.